broadcasting. We're going to taping for the audio podcast tonight. So if you're joining us this way, this is our Facebook Live for Peachtree Corners Life, Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. So we're here at, let me do some quick introductions and then we'll get right into the show. We're here at Prototype Prime, a incubator here in Peachtree Corners, the city of Peachtree Corners, and they have about 12,000 square feet. They have this podcast studio that were very nice to lend me once a month. Actually, lately it's been used 3 or 4 times a month, so I want to thank them for that, Prototype Prime. They have 12,000 square feet of startup incubator space. Startups here, high technology, hardware technology companies, several design studios where you have 3D printers, open space, open workspace, and events happening all the time. In fact, there's one event happening today with the LinkedIn guy that's being sponsored by the Gwinnett Public Library and Prototype Prime. So they're holding that event here today. They have Wednesdays, they have food trucks out there, which is phenomenal. Take a break from the work that you're doing. This place is just popping with over 40 different companies working here. And I'm just thankful that we can use their podcast space. So, that said, there's a lot that has happened this week at the City Council meeting. Things going on in the cyber space about several issues that have popped up. And prior to the show, Brian and I were talking a little bit about some of that. And I guess we should probably start off a little bit with that. We should talk a little bit about what happened yesterday as far as a press conference. An announcement of the autonomous vehicle technology that is now being rolled out in the city of Peachtree Corners, and that was looked at and voted upon at City Council Tuesday. So tell us a little bit about what this whole thing is, Brian, and then we'll jump in a little bit about the pros and cons and what people are saying about it.
Sure. Okay, well, you're referencing a press conference that was held yesterday, subsequent to a vote by council on Tuesday night, a city council meeting, in which the city announced its a new programmed autonomous vehicle environment program.
Right.
That that mayor and council authorized me to use $2 million subsequent to a feasibility study we did on this for us to create both an autonomous vehicle test track or corridor,
right,
as well as the purchase of a fully autonomous vehicle. In the industry, it's a level 5 autonomous vehicle, or really the proper term is a driverless vehicle.
Okay.
A fully operational vehicle for use on this track.
Mm-hmm. So level 5 as opposed to...
There's a number of levels, and the lower level you go, the more there might need to be human interaction, presence, and or interaction.
Okay.
So this is a vehicle that ultimately would not need anybody to be sitting at any controls.
Okay.
Fully driverless.
So fully realized after construction and everything's done, it would be driverless.
Yeah, correct. The vehicle will be manufactured specifically to be driverless.
Okay.
And using, technology,
right,
artificial intelligence, LiDAR, surveillance cameras, all the sensors to drive and,
right,
not hit things and all that kind of stuff. And so we announced this as after last year doing our due diligence on this, we announced this as initially an economic development effort. And so what we're doing here is we are creating a separate, isolated lane of Tech Park, about a 1.5 mile lane.
Okay.
We're calling it a test track or a corridor, whatever you want to call it. But we're creating this right here in Tech Park. And it's going to be offered up. The corridor itself will become available for the use by those who are in the transportation technology ecosystem, those who are into the intelligence behind autonomous vehicles or radar and, surveillance and all that kind of stuff. And so the corridor itself is an amenity that we believe when fully in place, will be an enticing component to those who are in this ecosystem that they may want to expand or have some sort of a presence here in Tech Park.
Now, you've even spoken to some companies, I think, right?
I have a number of Fortune 500 companies that have divisions that are in this, and they have expressed interest. And so the track itself could be used, could be, rented out, whatever term we're going to, ultimately get to for use by those. And then our car, the one car that we're getting, that vehicle, will also have the ability for companies to test individual components associated with this ecosystem on the vehicle, like maybe a different LiDAR or different speakers or a different battery that holds its charge longer or whatever that is.
Or security aspects or cameras and all that.
Any of that kind of stuff. And so it'll be kind of we're trying to set it up to the plug and play where you unplug one and let's try a different one. And so with the presence of a track and a vehicle and the ability to have more, we have reason to believe that that Technology Park as a whole will benefit immensely from it because of two things. One, this is not, we're aware of, this type of thing does not exist anywhere in the state. The ability to, have a test track for this type of thing to be shared, or a vehicle in which to do it. We know city of Atlanta is got a program on North Avenue, a smart corridor, but that corridor is kind of the most extreme, complicated environment for them to integrate ultimately an autonomous vehicle because it's heavily used by human-driven vehicles. It's got a lot of traffic signals, pedestrian crosswalks with pedestrian-actuated lights. And so you got it's complicated. Yeah. And of course, that's the kind of one extreme. There are places in the U.S. that have special environments, sanitized, kind of sterile environments for an autonomous vehicle to be tested on, but they're isolated from interaction with real world.
Pedestrians or driveways.
Right. We believe this offers the hybrid. It's not as complicated as North Avenue, which just takes extra time to get it set up, or as sterile as other places. And oftentimes they're associated with universities. I know University of Michigan has a famous one. Okay. Ours is kind of a hybrid. So the lane itself can only be used by an autonomous vehicle on this. Right. And so it is not driving it's not driving in the same lane as human-driven ones. But there are interactions with pedestrians and other vehicles because the Technology Parkway has on the side of the road, the north side of the road that we're putting this lane in, has a number of companies that their parking lots, the ingress-egress point interacts with this lane. So there will be some interaction with other human-driven automobiles and pedestrians and Gwinnett County Public Transit. So it offers, we think, a controlled environment, but one in which that does have some of the real-world things that we need this technology to be able to react to. And so we believe that it'll both attract companies to locate or expand into existing office space within Tech Park, or we have two incubators and an accelerator, or one incubator and two accelerators, really, within Tech Park, in which we also believe that startups would be interested in here, and it would become, in the industry, it's called a vertical. It would become a theme, a micro theme within the macro theme, at least here at Prototype Prime, because this is a hardware and software technology incubator. Right. And that's pretty broad. That's kind of like saying, you have where our concentration is the ocean. It's pretty broad, but it's still, we're a technology incubator. This would create a vertical specifically around autonomous vehicle, technology ecosystem within that.
There's a whole industry.
There is, and a narrow one, but it's rare. So this may be a catalyst. We believe it'll be a catalyst for more companies to want to come here. And so all of those things are just, another way of saying economic development, more activity in Tech Park. Activity begets activity, right. And more activity means more revenue for the city. That is not property tax revenue, more occupational tax or right. Business license revenue, more sales tax, more people eating at restaurants or going to the gas. So we believe that this will be a catalyst for, and the irony of the cradle of technology in Metro Atlanta here, right. Tech Park Atlanta is not lost on us. We're going back to kind of cutting edge like it was back in the 70s and 80s, where this was the epicenter of technology in Metro Atlanta.
Right, and it was. And fortunate for other areas like Alpharetta and other places, they've sort of taken that over to a degree, and we've abdicated it over the years. Part of it is because we didn't have a city here to really promote that. And Gwinnett County is way too vast and has too many interests to be able to go and do anything.
Spend enough time, right?
Like this. So, listen, like you said, there's extremes on this. You could have went the full hog and you could have done something way more expensive. You could have done something less so, but probably not as enticing to other companies. There's other things that are being done around the world and in other cities, like, it's an electric vehicle, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Right. So, you could have done and they do this in China now, you could have done, and they're moving way ahead of us on that, and AI and deep learning and all that, could have done a self-charging lane that would charge that car. And eventually that could be something that maybe someone looks at and says, let's test it here. But, the fact is that it's almost $2 million that is being spent on this. Mm-hmm. Yes, does that path, that 1.5 mile, need to be paved and done, work on eventually at some point? Probably. And maybe that length of space would cost what, to resurface and do all that?
We remilled and resurfaced that whole stretch. You could be pushing $500,000, $400,000, $500,000.
So, doing that, it has to be done anyway. So when you add in a few things like that, but the fact is that I agree with you. I know, and we're going to have to get to that because there's some questions online about why are we doing this? Why is City Light doing this? Why is Brian Johnson running with the ball and doing this? And what people don't understand, I think, is that Brian Johnson, city manager, is at the behest of the city council. And you can't do anything other than what the city council would like you to do.
Yeah, city manager's job is to implement the policy set forth by the elected officials.
Right.
I don't create it. I just implement it.
So I don't understand how some people can even look at that and say things that they don't even understand. It's a city manager council government. You work, you could be fired for any reason. It actually doesn't. You have a worse job than most people because your employment contract doesn't need a reason to let you go. They could just let you go with no reason.
Right, which was why it's not a contract. It's an employment agreement. But yes, city managers can be fired for any reason or no reason at all.
Right. So as long as 4 out of the 7
correct.
council people,
I work for a majority of council.
Right. So one person can't come to you and say, Brian, I need you to do this. They can, and within reason you probably could, depending on what it is. And at some points maybe you might say, no, I need a vote of the council to be able to do this. But the fact is that you're here managing what the city council envisions the future to be for the city, and you're a talented city manager that has had 2 other cities that you've worked for larger than this city, and I personally believe that you're doing a good job at what you're doing.
Thank you.
City council. Listen, when the city council got voted as City Light, that maybe 5 years ago was something less, how to put this, it was a salesman point of view of what the city should have been. And I believe that the city has grown and needs to go further than where it is. I believe a city that's in place needs to have a vision, needs to take over certain things and do it. Other people believe it's big government stepping in, using money that maybe could be used for other things. I think one of the things someone said was, why can't the money be used for schools, instead? Well, the city doesn't budget school programs necessarily.
No, the school system is the Gwinnett County public school system, right.
So you don't do that, but the other things also is, well, if there's funds for that, what about funds for Holcomb Bridge Road and other works on that side of the city? And the city has an overlay plan and is looking to do that eventually.
Yeah, and look, anytime there is an expenditure of resources, there should be and usually is some conversation about, is that the best place for that money to go? And you can usually make an argument for it to go elsewhere all day long.
Right.
The toughest job for elected officials is to basically take infinite need and try to meet it with finite resources. So I present to them many times throughout the year, but definitely within a budget, an annual budget adoption, I present to them all this stuff, and they have the difficult decision of choosing where this goes. And they have to see it through. Okay, do we use it to patch a pothole?
Right.
We use it to do this, we use it to that.
Priorities.
Correct. And there are lots of arguments, depending on the philosophy you have for government, that that are going to differ. So some not thinking this is a good use, I completely understand, because there are arguments against it. I will tell you that council's take on this was essentially that if you can do something to improve the local economy, the second and third order effects of that are such that the local economy on its own will produce more revenue. So, the theory that behind, let's just use the extremes. One case, if something like this program gets Tech Park to a point where there's no vacancy, and this place has really become this like autonomous vehicle oriented space, and we start coming on the map as whatever, and the revenue that could generate through sales tax, business license, right, the activity with people who work here, buy houses here, housing values increase. That's one extreme. And of course, that's the utopian one. But then on the other side, the other extreme would be you don't do something, and let's say occupancy rates within a business park start to vacancy rates increase. There's not enough activity, revenue goes down, and then you get the flight of that's not the place to go. Right. And then pretty soon our revenue's going down because we didn't do anything. Now those are the two extremes, and if somebody could control which direction definitively, they would. But it's just those are the kind of things, unfortunately, mayor and council have to consider, and there's no easy answer. There's really no necessarily right or wrong answer. They have a philosophy, and the philosophy was to capitalize on, again, cradle of technology here, 3, incubator type of things, a roadway the city owns that actually can afford to add this in, and a technology that we kind of had presented us by some in the industry in a feasibility study that said, look, you can do something really unique for not a lot of money. I mean, so that was how they got to that point.
And you know what? I mean, not that you're feeding into it, but there are people that you'll never make happy. And we know this in life. We'll never make everyone happy. There are people that never wanted this city, and people that believe, well, okay, we're stuck with the city. It's a city light, though. It should be stuck to 3 items that they should be doing. Forget the Arts Council. Forget the technology stuff. Forget everything else, and just stick to those 3. Don't choose government funds for anything else. These are no government type of people. And that's fine. Listen, there's a place for that type of opinion, and that's fine. But I think the majority of the people that live in the city don't see it that way. I think that there are vocal people on certain forums that see it, that want it that way. And the more you talk about, well, there'll be more revenue coming in. Well, wow, that means more taxation, more tax money that's going to be spent on God knows what. And those people don't want that. They don't want success that way. They want us to just be the little place that we were before the city formed.
That's correct. There are a lot of people, I get a lot, that get angry that the city doesn't push the pause button, the freeze button.
Yeah.
And, really, I mean, that button doesn't really exist. Cities are always evolving. They could be evolving in a positive way, or I guess devolving.
Right.
And so you can't just hit freeze and it be oftentimes this idyllic period of somebody that when they look back and I moved there because of this and you shouldn't change.
Yes.
Now sometimes you can do things that, you can make mistakes and grow too quick or grow in a wrong direction, but you can't there's no such a thing as just this pause button where, no more development.
Well, it
doesn't exist.
And it's always the people that have come here. It's either the people that have lived here the longest, or I've noticed, and I've been here since 95, that when people move here, they move for a certain reason. Before, let's say, the Forum, before the town center. But even after the Forum and the town center was there, people are like, well, why are we cutting down those trees? Why are we doing this? And then they'd be upset with Simpsonwood Park, for example, when it was being sold. Why did the city buy it? It's like, well, now people are glad that the city bought that, along with the county, actually, bought that property.
And then we got some that right now say, why didn't the city buy the Fiserv property to prevent, you're hearing that too. And then others are like, oh, they shouldn't be involved in that. And so, again, look, the different perspectives are fine. Yeah. The one last point about all that revenue and everything I would like to make, though, is one thing has never wavered when it comes to the mayor and council, and that is their intention is not to have the city be involved in taking any more money out of the pockets of residents than we currently do. That's their goal. Right. And that's important because, in the form of doing things like implementing a property tax or things like that, council has been very clear, we don't want to be the ones to take more. But we have been successful in some areas such that our overall revenue stream has increased. Not because the city assessed a millage rate or went up on, business license fees or, trash collection, but because of things like more business activity, more hotel guests and lodging tax, more things like that. And so as we get more revenue, some people are almost like, well, here they go, spending more money. And I'm like, would they rather us say thanks but no thanks? Right, Sales tax is healthy here. So the amount of splosh that we get from that, it's almost like, oh, they weren't getting that when they were created. And now look at it. Well, it hasn't been because the city did things to collect more. It's just that we've been, the community has done well. Yeah. And inherent in the community are revenue streams that come out of it, and we've just been blessed with having more of it. And so mayor and council are wanting to use it to try to make the community better.
Okay, and and some people don't understand too, I think that, as a city, you get a bigger percentage of that splost, as opposed to we were unincorporated with that county. So we get actually the biggest share of any of the cities because we're the biggest city by land mass and population. So we get that money, and that money is being used well to resurface. We're doing more resurfacing in a shorter period of time, I think.
The second lane on Peachtree Parkway as you merge into PIB, is one that has clear, demonstrated benefit because you had to go down to one lane before you merge. Those are the kind of things that we're wanting to spend that money on, is to try to make our community a little bit better.
Right. And so, like you said before, it's like, you don't have to be a one-horse pony, one-show pony?
One-trick pony.
One-trick pony, thanks. There's different things, there's different hoppers, and you can't just zone in on one thing and just do one thing only. There's a variety of things happening in this city, and there's a variety of places to use that money. Now, as far as the money goes for that, and we were talking a little bit, I had asked about this. This is essentially coming out of general funds to a degree, unless it qualifies for SPLOST.
Well, it does. It could go either. Again, we haven't expended anything. I just got the green light to implement this program based on the feasibility study. Right. So, right now, once I got the green light, a couple things started. One is the design of the lane change and marking and signage and everything has started, because we do have to make a few adjustments to the tech park, usually around the medians. There's a few places where we got to squeeze the median a little bit, and some drainage work and everything. So that's going on. We're also starting to write the specifications for the vehicle, and it'll get bid out, and it'll be part of the $2 million that council budgeted for this. But which fund it comes out of, I haven't had to decide yet. It is certainly a SPLOST, absolutely a SPLOST eligible project.
Yeah, and that's money that, and people understand this. I think most people, even the ones commenting against this, understand that that's money coming from other areas, and their comments are essentially, well, let's use it for something else. So there goes government again, using more tax dollars, even though it's there. And let me tell you something. You know, the people that voted for Trump, okay, or the same people that sometimes I feel like want less government or something, and they're an issue on that. Trump took every tax advantage that he could to maximize his profit, just like a businessman. And I would see no difference in a city government taking advantage of what's provided as far as SPLOST or other grants, and we'll talk about that in a minute, to be able to do things because the money is there. And for a city government, its leadership not to be able to do that, I would find as a bad steward.
It's almost, I would submit to you that it would be, you know, irresponsible for the city to turn down extra revenue that the city could use, but it doesn't come from the city raising some fee or tax.
Correct. So if the federal government is providing grants, and let's talk about that for a second, because let's move on to the purchase of the old city hall.
Okay,
we're at Tech Park, we're at Prototype Prime. This is the first floor, if you will, the ground level or below ground level, depending on how you look at it, of the old city hall. Okay, there's an opportunity here that came up at City Council that you presented that would be able to purchase this building. There we go again. We're going to be purchasing another piece of property, but smartly, in an intelligent way, and using a federal grant. Now, I'm assuming it wouldn't happen unless we had access to that federal grant.
Absolutely not.
So explain what it is that we're talking about.
Well, you know, part of my job and my staff's job is to not only implement policy that, you know, council adopts, but also to present council opportunities that may exist that they wouldn't be aware of and say, hey, here's something that you guys might consider, and they can turn it around and say, great idea. And what I did this last council meeting is I presented to council an opportunity that presented itself, and there is an economic development grant through the federal government in which there is grant money that they will give to cities that have a defined activity or program that creates jobs. And within that, this grant can be used for certain things. And one of them is the purchase of a building or the renovation of a building. But the overall mission is for the creation of jobs, it's about creating jobs. And so when this grant became available, you know, the thought was, wait a second, we have an incubator that's its mission is to create jobs. Right. So we looked at the grant, and the grant would essentially give us enough money that if we received the grant, we could exercise a purchase agreement or a purchase option for the building.
That we have an option.
That we currently have in the lease agreement. Because remember, this building is leased. Right. And so Prototype Prime leases the main floor. The floor
Prototype Prime is
the nonprofit, the 501c3. That's the name of the that's the name of the business incubator, and it is a 501c3 that runs the incubator that we're currently in. And Prototype Prime, when we moved out of the second floor of this building, City Hall, that space became available, and we've had some startups here that became successful enough that they want to move into upstairs and rent some space. Okay. And then we're going to have some classroom space for us to do some coding schools, some follow-on education, and then also some additional incubator space. So ultimately, the lease for the second floor would require, you know, a lease payment be made, and usually that would come from like the company that's moving upstairs. They pay the Prototype Prime a lease for their space, and Prototype Prime turns around and pays the landlord. Right. Well, this grant will give money to the city for the city to then purchase the entire building, all 25,000 square feet.
Because there's a lease with an option to buy.
Correct. And would exercise that, and the bottom line would be the previously negotiated purchase option. It's in the lease. That dollar amount minus the amount of money we would get from the federal government for this grant would allow the city to purchase this building for only $460,000.
And this building is valued at?
Over at $2.5 million.
$2.5 million. So the grant, which is available, which we're going to apply for. This is
correct, and that's what I asked council's permission to do. Was I got us pre-cleared to make sure we qualified, that this activity qualified, and it did. And so that was my kind of litmus test to say, all right, now I'm going to present this to council and say, hey, here's an opportunity. Would you like to take? And we debated. Council debated it, asked me some questions. What are the strings, and are they ones that are, that we're okay with, assuming? And then they said, we like it. Let's apply. Now, we may not get it. And if we don't, we'll continue blowing and going like we're doing right now by paying the lease and, all this activity.
How much do we pay in lease payments for this building? What's involved in that on an annual?
Second floor is complicated because you have some periods of time where we got free rent up front, and there's tenant improvements or whatever. But on the ground floor here, what did it come out as? I think we're paying, or Prototype Prime is paying $12,000-15,000 a month. 12,000, yeah, somewhere around in there.
Okay, so they pay $12,000 a month. So in a year's time, we're looking at 120, 30, 150,000 roughly. And the lease is for how long?
I think down here 3 years, maybe.
150 times 3. We're at that almost 450,000.
Right.
That would have been.
So essentially, the city could potentially buy this building for $460,000, and then the lease payments go away.
I don't see. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think that it's phenomenal that you were able to find that and bring it to the city, and actually to be able to get 1.8 million grant with very few strings. Now there are some strings.
There are,
like with everything else. There's some strings now. One of that is that if this building is sold at any point in time, that 1.8 million has to go back.
Uncle Sam needs his 1.8 million from the grant back.
Okay, so that's one. Number two, but there aren't other strings as far as, this building is ADA compliant, I believe.
Well, it will be when the second floor renovation, tenant improvements are done. Okay. That wasn't when we were in it. Right. But now that we're doing the tenant improvements, it will be.
Okay. As far as other things, we're not forced to employ certain types of people, diversity, anything?
No, but we are. But the other one is operationally, as far as its use. The other string is it has to be in, it has to continually be attempting to create jobs.
Which is what the incubator
correct. So that's our mission right now. So, but to your point, if the city ever said it wanted to change that mission or stop using it for that purpose, the building couldn't. The city could either just move and do that elsewhere, or it could sell the building, and then from the proceeds of that sale, give Uncle Sam his 1.8 million, and then the city could take the rest.
Right.
And
so if the valuation of this building goes much higher, the city could the city just
makes money, whatever that delta is. So,
right. So that's another piece that came out at City Council. And I'm sure there's some people that there will be people that doesn't want the city to do that, but it makes sense to me. The incubator is part of what the city's doing. It funds it, and to be able to cut down and at the same time cut down that budget, but at the same time be able to own the building for a long term, and using Uncle Sam's money. That money's going to go somewhere anyway. The money. Part of that money.
Yeah, that grant program exists with a pot of money. If we don't get it, some other city is going to get it.
So I don't, so listen, it just seems to me reckless not to be able to take advantage of something that's presenting itself for good reasons. We have a great reason, and it makes sense to do that. Now, some of that money also, if I remember right, had to deal with funding for hurricane.
There's a little bit of a rider. There's a couple 100,000 of the 1.8 that's actually a little bit higher this year than it would normally be, and that's because we were in an area that was declared a disaster when the hurricane came through. So there's the cleanup money. So but it's not much.
Okay. So the money's there, and we're going to apply for it at this point because you've been tasked to do that now. All right, cool. Some other things happened also at City Council. There's, I guess might as well go through some of that. We are, that was a full hour just talking about those two things.
Yeah.
And God knows there's other things. We don't have to, we could go through the rest of the City Council and just see what transpired. Unless there's something new you want to share. How's that app going? How's the city app going, by the way?
Well, I mean, I'm probably not the right person to ask, meaning, we're taking comments from people who are offering suggestions.
Okay.
And so, next time I might have some, but we've had some decent suggestions already.
Okay.
Things like making the restaurant tab, all the dining opportunities here, searchable within the app.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I looked at that and it's not.
Right. So that actually came from one of our, from Councilwoman Albach. But, we're asking for, look, play around with it.
Right.
Tell us what we can do to improve it. Tell us what it's missing. Tell us what, the phase 2 that we're doing right now is we're getting to a point where we're going to be able to integrate Waze directly into our app.
Because that's not integrated?
It's not directly in it yet.
Okay.
There's some coding stuff. We made it a part of our, or we made it an important part of our RFP for solid waste. Because next month we could talk about the details of solid waste contracts.
Yes, because that's coming.
Yes,
So
I mean, and
gonna
there will
be?
we'll go into effect January 1, but there'll be some changes, I think, for the better.
Yeah.
But one of the areas we did is we want the solid waste hauler we use to have an app, and for their app to be embedded in ours, so that if you had a missed pickup or you need a special bulk pickup or whatever, you use our app to communicate directly with the waste hauler.
I've done that 2 or 3 times over the years, and that would be great to be able to say, I need a bulk pickup on Monday. Yeah.
Right. So, those kind of things. We think it's, again, it's an easy, quick way to get to some of the, what we think is more core things that people want. We're excited about with the town center coming in the parking deck for you to be able to use that feature to know which parking spots are empty and that kind of thing. Events on the town green, the event calendar will become a much bigger deal because it can, give you, and we're looking at the also into the geofencing component, which is if you allow, just like you would on other apps, if you allowed push notifications.
Right.
Which if you do now, when my communication director sends things out, it'll have a little number to tell you that has stuff, another one that came up is when you get into the app, we're trying to get it to where it tells you which of the buttons the number's coming from. It doesn't tell you that yet. You I guess we assumed you knew news, but we got to make it there. But anyway, we're wanting push notifications to be active. So if you allow it, when you get to a certain geographic area and your phone has the GPS, knows where it's at, it'll automatically know you're in the corporate limits of Peachtree Corners. It'll feed you stuff specific to Peachtree Corners.
That is cool. And would that at some point include, maybe the Waze part, if there was an accident at an intersection?
Yes.
And
Waze already does it kind of, for those who use Waze, there are times where you'll be sitting somewhere, if you're not moving.
Right.
It'll come up with an ad of somewhere that geographically is right there.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting at an intersection the other day, and then all of a sudden I happened to look down, and there was an app for a Dunkin' Donuts, and right there,
it's pushing.
Was a Dunkin' Donuts, and it pushed it there to kind of say, hey, we got to. So we think it'll offer some of the local retail establishments an opportunity for sales and things to be pushed. So we're working it, but it's a work in progress.
Okay. And there was a read, I don't know if it was that, maybe not that, the entertainment district. There was a first read, I guess. It says first read in consideration. I always thought you read the piece, but it was just to introduce at the City Council was first read in consideration of the amended Chapter 6 for alcoholic beverages, deals with the entertainment district. I don't know if there was going to be an expansion on that. So what's happening with that part of it?
All right, real quick on ordinances, they require 2 reads.
Right.
So that's why you will have the first time it's read, which kind of starts the egg timer, kind of starts the process, is they have to have 2 reads at 2 separate city council meetings. So that's why that first read is basically notifying the public in a formal way that there is going to be a vote by council at a next meeting about that topic. Okay. And the purpose is for people to, what is this about? And they have time
so
to,
this way it's on the agenda, but it doesn't, first read is kind of funny when it's said that way. It doesn't mean that something's read
Well, I do read that section. I have to read
this,
that.
well,
Right.
this paragraph, yes.
But yeah, you don't read the whole ordinance. It's just the heading. That's correct.
But if it's available to be looked at, if someone wants to look at it,
They can request it, yeah.
they can request it. Okay. So that's going to come up at the next meeting.
It is.
And that is
So what that is so the town green is kind of the impetus for why we needed to do this. So we've got this town green that later on this year, we hope in December, we're going to have a ribbon cutting, and it'll be available for use. Public can go out, residents and do things. Right. Well, the town green serves a lot of purposes, but one of them is for special events. And some of the special events, there's going to be an alcohol component, like a concert.
Right.
And so I knew as we were getting, once we actually executed that agreement with our private partner, Fuquay, to build the town town center, and it was happening, I knew that at a certain point we needed to address how the events were going to play out at the town green, specifically alcohol. So we started to look at what are the things in our current code that regulate alcohol that are problematic there. So, for instance, there's an open container prohibition here. You can't have alcohol served in a container and you walk out of that establishment into the public. Well, we want you to be able to do that at the town green.
Right.
So we needed to amend that. We needed to have a component of BYOB, bring your own beer. If that concert's going to be one where we want that to have, because some of them we're going to want you to purchase it there too.
Sure. Okay.
So that the local, right. So we'll have a mix. So I had all of these regulations. My staff said, here are all the things that regulate alcohol in the city, including even where there could be a liquor store and size and all that kind of stuff. And I said, we were looking at, all right, do we amend every single one of these standalone and with a citywide application? Right. And, you don't want that because you don't want an open container to be everywhere.
I would think.
So the best way for us to attack this, in my opinion, and council ultimately agreed, was for us to create what many people would know as an overlay district, a special layer placed on top of what currently is the base zoning. And in this case, our overlay district is called an entertainment district. It's pretty common for cities to have this, and it's a special area of a city, geographically defined, in which entertainment is an important component. And because of that, there are certain codes that apply everywhere else in the city except there. Okay. And that's what the alcohol component in the entertainment district is doing is, so, for instance, there's a prohibition of having an open container of alcohol everywhere in the city. But if this entertainment district passes, the exception would be in the entertainment district at a certain places and and everything.
Green. So where is that entertainment district? What's the proposed idea? What area?
You mean the boundary? All right. The proposed area currently is going to, and without giving you the meets and bounds or whatever, it's basically going to be the far northern part would be the Ingalls Shopping Center. Okay. And then it would come across East Jones and it would include the Forum. And then if you cross 141, the town center, all the way to Peachtree Corner Circle, including the land that we just bought, everything, all the way down to include the Chase Bank, Black Walnut, including what will ultimately be the Hotel Indigo and the Innovation Loft. And then we have it crossing Peachtree Corner Circle to include what was the Earth Fair Shopping Center where Noble Finn is. Right. And it also, the one last area, so that's it. That's really the core now, but we did include one other area, and that's back on Da Vinci Court.
Okay, where the office building is.
Right, where the office building and the big detention pond there is. The reason we did that is twofold. One is there are some opportunities in the future for that detention pond to be kind of become an amenity, part of the town center. Okay. There's some things that we could do over there to make kind of cool. And two, Peachtree Corner Circle, that road can be closed for special events. Like the festival would be a good example. You close the Peachtree Corner Circle from 141 back to Medlock. Yeah. And then you have vendors come out and set up,
for a 2-day weekend.
Correct.
Festival.
And so we want that to apply over there too. And so special event permits will then dictate within the entertainment district if there are special restrictions within it. So, for instance, if somebody's we're going to have a concert on the town green, and we want to have BYOB.
Right.
The special event permit will say, all right, you can bring your own beer for this particular date, for these times, and only for this area of the entertainment district. So you're not like bringing it to the parking lot of Ingalls.
Yeah, right.
So even within the entertainment district, we can limit it by having a special permit.
Okay.
And other times we may want to have it a little bit wider of a, like, for instance, on the festival, we may want to include, the alcohol component on the Peachtree Corner Circle if there's vendors set up along there, or over onto the
annual festival does have vendors selling beer and stuff.
Right. So that's what that is all about, is for us to once and for all kind of come up with all those exceptions to regulations that apply elsewhere in the city, and to regulate it in preparation for us to have activities out there.
What a great idea. The only issue I see maybe is closing that segment off from 141 to Medlock, but I'm sure people will be upset with traffic maybe. But it's a
depending
weekend.
on, I was going to say, depending, I would imagine it would be like it wouldn't happen until, say, Saturday morning, and maybe through Sunday noon or something. So who knows? I mean,
yeah, and you know what? It's the Crooked Creek Parkway was closed for a while for that type of festival anyway. So it's not like it's not been done.
Correct. They do it every year for the festival at the current location.
Right. Did you hear anything more about Earth Fairs, the old Earth Fair building? Any activity, any thoughts, anyone approaching the city with regard to that?
I mean, there has been, we've had a number of entities inquire as to the space, and that's all kind of being fleshed out.
Okay.
So,
any entertainment type of venues or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I won't ask you any more on that, since that's all informal anyway. So.
Right, it is, and of course, there's oftentimes all the way to non-disclosure agreements that are signed in some cases. So that's why you're hesitant to name names, because you could actually hurt your own effort, because somebody's like, well, I wasn't ready for that to go public, so now screw it. I'm not going to your place. I'm going elsewhere.
Yeah, I get that. It's a normal thing.
Oh, I know you do. Yeah.
So, anything else that you'd like to bring up? Anything?
I mean, we're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. I mean, the town center elevation, the townhomes at town center, those elevations were approved at council.
Right. And in fact, they said something I didn't know about this, but it's those townhouses. I mean, I knew there were 3-4 stories, I believe. 3-story units, and they have an opportunity to have an elevator on them.
Right. The big discussion was, so council wanted them to be special, so they actually kicked it back last month when it was in front of council to approve the exterior elevations. And council wanted a number of things. Councilman Gratwick very much, wanted them to have greater variety, more, like masonry material, wanted to have that wrap around all 4 sides. You couldn't do like 3 sides brick, but, so he got the developer to go back to the drawing table, and they produced one that looked really nice. You've seen it.
The rendering actually is beautiful.
It is.
Especially compared to what they had. Way more variety. Every unit looks a little different peaks and valleys to the roofs. Exactly what an architect that would want to produce something pretty, as opposed to a salesman that wants to sell something at a certain price.
Right. So, you got to give mayor and council credit for kind of towing the line. Yep. Again, Councilman Gratwick really, pushed them hard. So we got that. Now the remaining conversations were twofold. One is the ability to put masters on the main.
Right, which is not going to happen, it sounds like.
It does not appear that it can for those. And the reason is putting a master on the main. And really the two things we're talking about now are for those who don't want stairs, or they have some physical encumbrance to going upstairs a lot. And so, people know that sometimes you have your master bedroom on your main floor, so you don't have to go upstairs as much.
Right.
And my understanding is you need about like 28 or more feet in width of these units for you to be able to get a floor plan to work for a master on the main. And these are like 24.
24.
So they're saying they can't put the master on the main, but what they can do, and this is going to be an option for the purchasing entity to, say, is they can put an elevator in.
Right. So more than, I think if I understand right, more than half the units could put that elevator.
That's correct.
To the 3 floors.
So those, but it's going to be $30,000-$40,000 increase if you want it.
Right.
But they can put it in there for those who either want resale value, because that does increase resale value if you have that. I mean, because a segment of the population you can still market to that maybe can't go up downstairs, but you're like, look, you can still do it without. So, but each homeowner or prospective homeowner would work that out with the developer.
Yeah,
but
I thought that was a great idea.
I do too, and so I think we're happy with the way those are going to be turning out, and they're under design right now, and they hope to start breaking ground and going vertical with the building spring of next year.
Yeah, 2019. Yeah. And I had the feeling almost that the council people actually thought it was going to happen sooner.
They thought they were going to start on actual moving dirt a little bit sooner, going vertical. They thought it was going to be fall of this year, and it's spring of next year.
And this rezoning and such is tied to the property. The elevations are tied.
Yes.
If they were to sell it to someone else over that time, it's all tied
That's
to that.
correct.
All right, good. So no one else can come in and decide I want to do something.
Right, I want to do, stacked flats. Or
okay. Cool. And what about the old 5-serve property? Anything? I know there was also, I think, a first read on that.
That is going to be in front of council at the May city council meeting, and so that property is, that development is going to be presented to council for a special use permit. And so right now the negotiations are over of the conditions that'll be, tied to the city's approval of these of this use permit.
Because there's 900 units, 900 plus units, a variety of units, flats.
They're proposing to be able to go all the way up to 916 units. But that is a variety of everything from detached single-family townhomes all the way to the other extreme of memory care and assisted living, like nursing home.
Right, which the way they explained that at a public meeting would probably come later down the line or disappear in case the market changes, is the way they explained it at a presentation.
Well, they would like to have complete flexibility.
Right.
And the negotiation currently is the one that you always see on these kind of things, is the developers are wanting as much flexibility as they can.
Right.
So that as they develop it, they can make certain decisions. And I understand, the city understands that. Conversely, the city wants to have as many restrictions as it possibly can so that there's absolutely no doubt as to what exactly it will look like. And so I would say generally healthy tug of war between the two are to find middle ground where they commit to certain things in a definitive way. But there's some flexibility because the market does fluctuate, and so they do deserve to have some flexibility because, this could be 2, 3, 4 year process to build out everything, and things could change, and so you don't want them to commit to something that right today may be feasible, but
and the city on the other side of it also doesn't want them to build the most profitable part and leave the rest of it off that made the idea of doing it a good idea.
That's correct. So that's where we're in that period where they're no, that won't work. So
and they wanted, I think, 7-story building was the highest building.
There are a few that are proposed at the back end of the ridge.
Closer to the river.
Basically at the river. So in other words, no one in Peachtree Corners could ever see that. The only people that could ever see it would be across the river.
That would have great view of the river, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
And they went through ARC, I think, through the Atlanta Regional Commission to get approval?
They had to go through it twice. The first one is the amount of units that they are going to be ultimately allowed to put in there triggered what's called a DRI, a Development of Regional Impact. So in the metro Atlanta area, if you hit certain trigger points, it's considered a development that has regional impact, not just local. So because there's so many units, that forced them to go through a special DRI process that's kind of supervised by ARC. So ARC weighs in, and they kind of send it to a bunch of agencies that are around here, like everybody from Georgia DOT, to Riverkeeper, to, these agencies. They look into it and they look at the proposed development and then they make comments.
Did they make any comments that were any major comments to the development?
No major comments. I mean, the developers kind of knew what they were doing and what things, could or could not be done. Okay. To their credit, they're proposing to try to build within the current impervious surface footprint. So they're really not wanting to add much more asphalt. So they want to go vertical on places on the property that have already been cleared of trees and have something, whether it's a building they'll demo and build on top of, or it's a current parking lot and they'll put a building on it. But they're not really wanting to cut down many more trees and add any more impervious surface.
That front of that property would probably remain the same, it sounds
That is correct. They call that the throat, and really from East Jones Bridge, other than what probably will be some sort of a gate, because it'll be a gated community, there you won't.
Control gate, like.
I don't know. I don't know if they know yet. I don't know if it'll be a guard or what, but I'm pretty sure they're wanting it gated. But other than that, you won't be able to see anything back in there.
Really?
The only people who would is you've got one subdivision, Riverfield, that has a lot of houses that back up to it. And then you have another road called Sunburst Drive.
Yes.
It's right by Simpson Elementary. Those houses back up to some of it. And then there's like 4 houses that driveways are directly off of East Jones Bridge that also have. So there's some housing but the rest of the public, you'll never be able to see back in there, just like you can't now.
All right. We've reached the end of the hour, pretty much. And Brian, as always, I've learned a few more things. And listen, after city council meeting, and I'm glad we do this after the city council meeting now, 4th Thursday of the month, because it's the 4th Tuesday for the city council.
Correct.
Right? Because we get to talk a bit about what happened at that city council meeting and then what's coming forward. So this is good. And if people have comments they'd like to share, we haven't. There was no comments this time, but if they're watching on Facebook during the noontime tonight, I'm going to post the podcast itself. Feel free to comment on the Facebook page. There's already been a bunch of comments about the money being spent on the autonomous vehicle part. So feel free to comment some more. I'll throw myself in there as well, and I'll try to restrain my comments. But feel free to like our page, share this video, share the podcast tonight. It's on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. You'll find the Facebook video. If you're listening to this podcast but don't have Facebook for some reason, that's fine. Not everyone does. You can find the embedded video on my website at peachtreecornerslife.com. And eventually we'll look to add, hopefully by the time we do the next one, YouTube live stream. So you'll be able to see it either on YouTube or Facebook as a live stream. Make your comments, and then we'll be able to answer some of the questions you have. Again, we're at Prototype Prime. Great incubator here in the city of Peachtree Corners. Appreciate their allowing me to use the podcast studio. Appreciate Brian's time. City manager's busy. He's lobbying. He's doing all sorts of things. The man is running ragged. And I appreciate the time that you give me. Again,
let me reiterate, though, we appreciate the opportunity to let a few more people potentially be educated about what's going on that would not be if you were not doing this. So appreciate it. That people don't hear, probably don't realize how lucky they are to have this available if they want to, because sometimes it's hard to get to meetings or read agendas or whatever, and you doing this is given, you're making it, easy on them, it's an important part of governance is the transparency and, talking about it and sharing both sides of the issue. Right. So we appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And visit peachtreecornerslife.com. I am trying to cover the city council meeting through freelance reporters and other stories that happen in this city. So that is the hyper-local news site for Peachtree Corners. So subscribe to our newsletter. That's a weekly newsletter now that goes out every Monday. You'll find out the next podcast show that's coming on. So just to let you know, next week, I believe I have one podcast going on. It's going to be a Skyped interview with the director of MomoCon. It's an anime. It's a geek weekend. So I'm a bit of a geek. And I'll be covering that with my press badge. But it'll be DreamHacker has partnered with them to do some of the gaming stuff. DreamHacker is one of the biggest gaming conventions, conferences in the world, actually in this country for sure. And they've partnered with Momocon as far as competition for gaming. So it's a convention that handles gaming, anime, cosplay, online games, and other things. So I'm gonna be covering that, having an interview with someone next week. We have Tracy Mason, who's running for Gwinnett Superior Court judge, and she's going to be on a guest. I believe she's on the 10th. So visit the website. You can find that information. Get my newsletter, and you can get that every week and know what's going on and some of the stories and stuff. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So guys, share the video.